Welcome to a very special edition of the Motorsport Show, brought to you in association with Sunoco, an oil company whose rich history in motorsport today vitalizes a number of race categories around the globe. The Sunoco Challenge is today the biggest prize in European motorsport, and we'll be talking to Anders Hildebrand about that, about why he created the challenge in the first place. Also in this week's show, we meet Linus Lundqvist. Let's begin though, now that the Formula One world is in its August break, with a look back at some of the recent standout achievements from around the world of motorsport. Matt Brabham, grandson of Sir Jack, fabulous talent, went through all the junior single-seater rungs in a way that suggested he was going to be a great IndyCar driver, or perhaps even in Formula One. He could still make it to IndyCar, but inevitably the funds have run out. He hasn't got the recognition he deserved. So, unafraid to swallow his pride, Matt switched to Stadium Super Trucks, and this year he's leading the championship. Stadium Super Trucks, an amazing category generated by Robbie Gordon, the former IndyCar, NASCAR and off-road specialist. Robbie, great personality in his own right. But Matt in Texas at the most recent round, qualified on the pole, reverse grid, started from the back, worked his way up to third place. Then the hood of his truck came loose, blinded, couldn't see what he was doing, kept going for half a lap, eventually lost it, had this spectacular roll. The car was then rebuilt before race 2, and guess what? Matt went on to win race 2. As I say, he's leading the championship. He deserves all the accolades he can get. Lirim Zendelli, remember the name. 3 races still to go in the very competitive German Formula 4 Championship, but Lirim has already clinched the title with 8 wins. Fabulous drive. He drives for the Charouz system, a team which has recently come into Formula 2 and done very well there too. Another driver to watch in German Formula 4 this year, David Schumacher, son of Ralf Schumacher. And interesting to note that Enzo Fittipaldi, grandson of Emerson, is currently lying second in both the German and the Italian Formula 4 Championships. Jamie Chadwick has shown lots of talent and determination in her career. She's already won the 2015 British GT Championship in the GT4 class. Now she has won a round of the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship against all the men. She did so at Brands Hatch last weekend, driving for Douglas Motorsport. It was the reverse grid race. She did start P4 and she finished second on the road. She inherited the win when the apparent winner, Pavin Ravishankar, was penalised for a jump start. British Formula 3 this year enlivened a lot by the presence of Jamie Caroline, the 2017 British Formula 4 champion, who began 2018 racing in the United States in the Pro Mazda series. He's now returned, has got a Formula 3 drive with Carlin, and already he's won 2 of the rounds. Canada's Rob Wickens continues to impress as a rookie in the Verizon IndyCar Series, driving for Schmidt-Peterson Motorsport. He finished second already, and now he's had another P2. This was at Mid-Ohio. He could have won that race, but at Mid-Ohio, like most IndyCar circuits, the big fear is getting a lap behind. There was a dice going on between Takuma Sato and Tony Kanaan, and a fast-closing Rob Wickens had to sit behind these 2 cars for 6 or 7 very frustrating laps, and the win got away from him. It went to Alexander Rossi, his second win of the series, but Rob Wickens continuing to show his talent as a rookie in the IndyCar Series. And a big day too at Brands Hatch for Flick Hay and Johnny Adam. They won the big British GT race in the Optimum Racing Aston Martin Vantage V12. Flick led from the start, and then as the pro, Johnny stepped in and took the lead with 4 or 5 laps to go. Fabulous win for both of them. And what a day for the women in the United Kingdom. Jamie Chadwick and Flick Hay showing that they can take it to the men. Daniel Ricciardo caught the Red Bull team and most of the racing world by surprise last week by announcing that he had signed a long-term contract with Renault. You'll recall that Seb Vettel was similarly sudden in the way he left Red Bull to join Ferrari. So for more on that and the ripple effect of Daniel's move, I'm joined by Stuart Codling, Executive Editor of the Motorsport Group. So Stuart, who was more surprised, the general public or the Red Bull team themselves, Christian Horner, Jonathan Wheatley, etc.?
I think you could probably have knocked Christian Horner down with a feather on Friday morning, and the way they rushed to confirm the news themselves to try and establish some sort of control and authority over it suggested that really they were caught with their pants down.
Not the first time we've seen this, of course. Sebastian Vettel gave him the same treatment when he went to Ferrari.
Yeah, thanks and goodbye.
First of all, motivation. What's behind all this, do you think?
I think a little bit must be money, but some of it may be sort of fear of Honda. Although you'd think, he's had enough experience of having a Renault engine grind to a smoky halt behind him maybe he's been given assurances, maybe he's told the Magic MG UK is coming.
Well, all his wins have been with Renault engines.
So
Maybe
it is a surprise. Maybe he does feel some sort of allegiance with them. Maybe they are making it worth his while. Maybe it's a long-term project. They say they want to be challenging for World Championships within a 5-year time frame, whereas Red Bull are kind of almost hitting the reset button by creating a new partnership with Honda, even though Toro Rosso have shown that with a little bit of mutual respect, that kind of partnership can work.
I think there's a bit of the Felipe Rubens thing here of, I want to be a number one driver in a team which loves me and wants me, and I can have that at Renault with Nico Hülkenberg there as a very good equal number one stroke number two, and I don't have to put up with being trodden on by Max. I think there's some of that. Would you not agree with that?
He has at least seemed to play second fiddle, even though when you look down, you drill down through the figures, you wouldn't say by any means that Ricciardo has been outshone by Verstappen. But you know, the spotlight has really, really been on Max, and when Max performs well, you know, he's sort of rides in on the back of a donkey, and everyone throws palm fronds at his feet. And when Ricciardo does a good race, it's like, oh yeah, all right.
Yeah, kind of. Although, yeah, I guess so. If you're a close Red Bull watcher, I think you might say that. I think from where I stand, Daniel Ricciardo's had a very, very good career at Red Bull, and it's an odd decision to make based on how good that team is and will continue to be. And we know Honda will definitely get it together. They always do, and they're starting to get together now. Yeah. But let's move on from that then, and what this does to the driver market. And first of all, who do you think will go to Red Bull now?
Obviously, Pierre Gasly, you wouldn't argue against him being a good person to put in that seat.
But the name we're not hearing, you mentioned it briefly there, was Fernando Alonso. He didn't get the Renault drive, and he's obviously not going to get a Red Bull Honda drive, that's for sure. So what a shame that is.
Yeah, he's really killed off his career in a series of badly timed or badly motivated moves. So, as you said, you know, he's slammed the door shut and flounced out at McLaren. He's been allowed back in recently, and he's now the new hero there with the new management. But you know, he fell out with Ferrari, he fell out with Renault. So basically, no one else will employ him in Formula 1.
Did he fall out with Renault? I suppose he did, looking back, because if they wanted him, they could have had him. And this was a perfect moment for Renault to get Fernando Alonso alongside Nico Hülkenberg, and they didn't go for it.
The people who were there in sort of his second coming at Renault after the McLaren thing broke in 2007 said that basically he wasn't really particularly a team player, and the partnership never really gelled, and they were quite glad to see the back of him.
The Sonico Welland Challenge rewards drivers of any nationality who excel in national or international motorsport with a fully paid drive in the Rolex Daytona 24 hours, plus testing. That amounts to about £350,000 at current market rates, which makes the Sonico Challenge the biggest prize a driver can win in European motorsport, Formula 1 included. Note the word prize. The man behind the challenge is Anders Hildebrand, a Swede who, well, just loves motor racing. Anders, great to see you, first of all. Secondly, there are two aspects to this that I find fascinating. One is the end prize, the race at Daytona in the Rolex 24 hours, which is an amazing thing. But beyond that, the way you've put the championship together and who's eligible and how you decided to do that. Tell us how that happened and your thought process on that.
Well, the whole idea is to bring a driver in the Snooker Fuel Championship to Daytona and give them a chance to showcase their talent at the big scene.
Right.
We supply British GT, British Formula 3, we supply Radical, we supply LMP3. There are lots of categories that we supply fuel to. And of course, the tricky part is how on earth do you fish out that guy that stands out? And that's what was the hardest thing, really.
Well, at some point you must have been thinking, should we focus only on GT or sports car drivers and not single-seaters, for example? I mean, was that one of the variables?
It was, and I actually, the guys at Daytona, when I told them, yeah, we've got to have British F3 in it, and they said, nah, they wouldn't be able to do it. They can only brake when they see the wheels. They will lock up, and they would be awful. I wouldn't recommend you. I said, but they're actually really, really good, and they're good with downforce. No, they wouldn't cut it. And then, of course, we had some really good drivers in the challenge. Like the first year, we had Daniel Ricciardo that would have won it had he not gone off at Brands in the final. And the second year was Jan-Erik Wörn, did exactly the same. And then we had of course, year 3, Felipe Nasr winning
Yeah.
it, and he stunned everyone at Daytona.
Yeah, he did, and I remember the impact he made at the time. So let's talk about that. How did that whole connection with the Rolex 24 Hours come to pass? Because you could have selected other races, I guess, although this is as good as any.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It's quite a long story, and I'll try to keep it short. But when Sunoco came in to take over from 76, who had been the long-standing partner of NASCAR and Daytona for nearly 50 years, and they announced they're withdrawing, and Sunoco stepped in to fulfill the shoes. I was 76 distributor in Europe, and then suddenly they decided they're going to stop making race fuels, and I thought, oh my God, what's happening now? Sunoco then stepped into their shoes, and I thought, I need to announce this. So I then put a big advert in Autosport magazine, and it was very expensive, double spread advert, but of course.
We won't go into that.
No. But anyway, what that made was that Jim France was reading Autosport.
Right.
And he then saw that Sunoco not only provided a good service, a good fuel, but they also marketed the event. And so he then got me on his radar, basically. And his point was that he wanted to continue the quest his dad, Bill France, had to make the Rolex 24, the Daytona 24 Hours, into an international race.
Right.
And at that point, around 2004, 2005, it was an American event, not many international drivers. And they had the Daytona prototypes, and they wanted to get international drivers. So he then thought, I need to meet the guy that put that advert into Autosport.
I get it, all right.
So that's sort of how he
Very
sort
good.
of found me.
And I imagine the nice thing today, yesterday, tomorrow, is for you to keep in very close touch with what's going on throughout European motorsport, because you've got so many championships and so many drivers who are scoring points in this. You must get to know all of them, and it's a good way for you to keep your old interest going. Because you used to race, right?
Yes, I will dabble a little bit in racing, but you're absolutely right. We're now averaging about 200 drivers each year that sign up for the 2 Sunoco challenges. So this is the 10th year we're running it, so nearly 2,000 drivers. And they all come up to me at the pit lane and say, so who's leading it now then? How's he doing? Oh, I wish I would have done that. I would have loved to be at Daytona.
Well, let's have a look then at the current standings, because there are 2 championships. There's the Whelen and there's the 240.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's look at the Whelen Challenge first. And you're doing this in association with Whelen, a US engineering firm who are very much in touch in terms of the drive and making the drive happen and working with the team, and obviously working with you at Sunoco. So look at the current standings, and surprise, surprise, Linus Lundqvist is leading it, Formula 3 driver, shades of the whole Daniel Ricciardo, Felipe Nasr, and he's doing well. He's a compatriot of yours too.
Yeah, he is, and he's doing extremely well. And it proves that the Sunoco Challenge actually works, because we are looking, if you're going to be a good endurance driver, you need to be consistent, you need to be fast when you have to, and don't crash.
Yeah.
And to be able to, because it's an average point scoring system, so you get 100 if you win, 85 second, etc., down to 10 position where you get 5 points. And if you get pole position, you get 20 points. You get fast laps, you get 20 points. So the maximum you can get is 140 points.
Okay, and then from Formula 3 to British GT, Phil Keane lying second at the moment in the Demon Tweaks Lamborghini. That's John Minshaw's team.
Yeah, and it's this
completely different.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Now this is quite interesting, because previously you haven't been able to contest in the Sunoco Whelen Challenge if you have driven a DP car before, or you have won the challenge before. But this is a 10th anniversary, so we're putting on a 10th anniversary special. So previous winners like Bradley Smith, and who races the LMP3 Cup, he's eligible. You have Phil Keane, of course, and Johnny Adam.
P3, we have Stuart Mosley, radical star.
Yeah,
completely different again. And this is what I love about the challenge.
Yeah. You're right. It's a magnitude of different type of cars and different type of winners. They all proved to be extremely good when they come into Daytona prototypes. So the system works, and it's the drivers that stand out that wins it. Stuart have been hampered this year by not full grids, so he has played this percentage game. But funny enough, Stuart was actually partnering Derek Johnston when Derek Johnston won the first Sunoco Challenge. But Stuart didn't do one race because he had to do Le Mans. So therefore, on an average score, because he got 0 points then, Derek Johnston won. So,
So if he was to win it, it would be poetic justice.
it would, yes. But
Now you do a second challenge as well, which is the 240, which is it's not the Rolex 24 hours, but it's still part of the same weekend race package.
Yes.
And that's 240-minute race, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's open to amateur drivers as well.
it's open to amateur drivers as well. So that makes it quite tricky from a point scoring system because you have to split the grids. But the British GT3, British GT4 AM drivers, they can take part of that, as can Mini Cooper drivers. So the difference between type of cars and different drivers is just phenomenal.
And what sort of car would they get to race typically in Daytona?
Well, last year we had an Audi GT4, we've had Camaros, we had Mustangs, and all different types. So, and it's a 240 minutes race.
Well, let's have a quick look at the top three in the 240 challenge now as well. And we have a Mini driver heading the points at the moment with Kyle Reid.
Yeah.
Man after my own heart, actually. I've raced Minis a little bit as well.
Okay,
Excellent.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if he continues to score well and wins the Sunoco 240 challenge, he will follow in the footsteps of Max Bladen, who won it 2 years ago. And but he's been one of these standout drivers. He's fast, he's consistent, gets fastest lap, gets pole position, and that's when you get the average score. So if you look at his average, which is just phenomenal, considering that you can only get 140 points maximum per race, and he sits at 116 points. It's quite phenomenal, really.
And we have another Radical driver in P2, but that's the Radical UK Championship, as distinct from Stewart, who is the European. And that's, again, from Minis to Radicals.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Quite very, very different cars, different speeds.
Have you raced a Radical, driven a Radical?
No, never driven a
Would you like to?
I would love to, but my wife would kill me. So that's not an option. Yeah. But no, Steve is one of these guys. He's always been there, and he's been so close to winning the Sunoco Challenge. So it would be great if he could win it this year. But
you have to stop yourself getting involved with these guys at some level, don't you? Because you must become friends with them, and you must have an inner feeling of what you'd like the result to be.
Yes, you have to put that aside. The only thing I can do is to help them to understand how the system works, and that sometimes they forget to read the regulations.
And another driver in P3 for the 240 Challenge, Anthony Wharton-Eales, and that's in the John Cooper Turbo Championship, which shouldn't be confused with the main Mini Challenge, right? These are quicker cars.
It's a quicker car. It's about double the amount of power, more downforce. He's done an exceptionally good job this year. And but there are other guys coming up from behind him. Nathan Harrison is getting very, very close to top three. So, and that's a fun thing with the challenge. You never know, because you have these fast laps and pole positions points to add to where they finish. The average point goes up and down all the time. It's not until the very last race, typically, when someone actually can win.
And let's just finish by talking about what happened last year at Daytona and how your winners got on.
Yeah, it was an amazing year again, and we had Stuart Middleton, who was in the Whelen-sponsored Action Express run, Cadillac DPI. He won the British GT4 Championship. The year before, he was in Ginetta Juniors, and suddenly he found himself being catapulted into this major race in Daytona. And as unluck had it, he couldn't do the December test because they were downsizing the engine, so they didn't have an engine, so he had to do simulator driving at Indianapolis. So that was good. But he was then into the raw test and jumping into that with all these amazing names drivers, and he very quickly got up to speed, and he did his 2-hour stint, did extremely well.
Were you there with him all the way?
Oh yeah, I was there. I wouldn't miss it for a second. It's just amazing to take these guys and put them in a brilliant alien environment and see how they blossom. Yeah. And from this shy kid, sort of grew up to a really superstar driver. I will never forget when he chased down Simon Pagenaud in the race, and it was actually running a strong third. And then in the end, when they were running second, and the Action Express team got the call from IMSA, said, he's lacking 20 seconds or thereabout of his minimum driving time. And they had to put Stewart into the car for the last stint to take the checkered flag in second position. They were very low on fuel. They basically tried to avoid a last splash and dash. So he was on the sort of head. You had to roll into the corners, and have that pressure on him as an 18-year-old kid, because he was our youngest winner, and take the checkered flag in a second, which was just fantastic.
Linus Lundqvist, who's been winning races with R in BRDC Formula 3 this year, is currently leading this year's Sunoco Welland Challenge as well. So let's take a closer look at the driver who may well be racing at Daytona next February.
It was more or less of an accident that I started with racing and karting, really. I started off with these small electric cars and then got to try on karting and thought it was the best thing that I've ever done. And soon I found myself in the middle of a Swedish championship and actually winning it as well. And this is all really down to my family that's made this possible and been very supportive from day one. And without them, of course, it wouldn't have been possible to do this. But racing hasn't been the sole thing that I focused on when I was younger. I picked up lots of other sports, but now when the racing has become a big part of my life, I try to do other things as well. And one of the things I picked up was martial arts and kickboxing. And it's a tough thing, I'll tell you that. It's not very easy when you go up towards, I don't know, world champions and so on training and that. But it's a lot of fun and it keeps you in great shape, which sort of you need to do this in the formula categories as well. And whatever step you take, the physical ambition of it becomes even tougher. You know, it's a good thing to carry with you all the way. 2007 was the year when I started competing in cars full time, and by that time I was 7 years old, and I also started watching Formula 1 for the first time ever. And 2007 was Lewis Hamilton's debut year, and it made a pretty big impact on it. So from that point on, I sort of always look up to Lewis Hamilton, and especially his driving style in the first 2 years. Later on, I started racing in Formula cars in my first 2 years, won the Swedish and Scandinavian championship in that one, and then sort of took the step out into the international arena as well. I dropped out of school last summer from Sweden, where I actually studied economics out of everything, but all that I really wanted to do was race and race cars. And then you got sort of the motivation from doing school and doing the thing you love most at everything. So I sort of stuck my mind to it and wanted to do racing full time, and I actually moved here to Britain to race, and it was pretty difficult in the beginning, I won't lie, especially I think the food and just transportation. I mean, I didn't have a car. I had a driver's license, but I couldn't get a car here or insurance, so it made it very tricky. I had to beg my team to pick me up at the airport and drive me to the circuits and everything. It's just different things that you have to be accustomed to here living in the UK. Like, I don't have my own apartment or anything like that. I just rent a room from an old lady called Zelda, lovely girl by the way. But it's just a few minutes from the factory, so from that point of view it's good. But all these things takes time to be accustomed to. But I think one of the biggest things is just, you know, as racing drivers, you try to keep your diet and so on, and then you get to England, where literally every time you order something, you get the question, do you want chips with that? It's not very easy to say no to that question every time, but you try to do your best and find your solutions. So as you may know, I'm from Sweden and representing the Swedish colours, and unfortunately we haven't had a Formula 1 world champion from Sweden yet, I say. But we still had great drivers in the past. So you got the drivers like Joe Bonnier, you got Gunnar Nilsson and Reino Wiesel and Ronnie Peterson and all these different types that drove like F3 as well. You got Eje Elg and Ricky Rydell and Kenny Brack and Felix Rosenqvist and Ted Bjork and Stefan Johansson, Pontus Tideman, Bjorn Verdheim, Slim Borgard, Bertil Roos, Connie Anderson, Jimmy and Joel Eriksson, Matthias Ekström, and then you got Johan Kristoffersson as well. All these drivers doing well, and some of them even winning world championships, but unfortunately not in Formula 1. And at the moment we have Marcus Ericsson in Formula 1, so sort of keeps our spirits up, and hopefully he can do well. But if not, my ambition is to be the first Swedish Formula 1 world champion. It's not going to be easy, there's a lot of good drivers out there, but my plan is to be the best one out of them.
That's all for this week's show. My thanks to Sunoco and to Motorsport Experiences. We'll be back again next week with another special episode as we look back at 60 years of the British Touring Car Championship.